Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here. I don't usually get to share the same platform as great politicians and bankers, so no one is allowed to throw any pies on me because I'm not going to talk about money and politics. In fact, let's see how fashion can impact our day-to-day lives. There's no doubt that we live in a country that is going through bipolar times. No matter where we look, what decisions that we take in this country, we are constantly negotiating between urban and rural, national, regional, English, vernacular, in politics, dynastic, and startup. Of course, and the biggest thing that's facing us, male and female, but more about that later. The world that I work in, the fashion industry, also is divided. It's bifurcated because on the one hand, you have the urban high fashion. You know, the urban high fashion inhabited by people perhaps like you living in big cities, and which account, the bridal market and the high fashion market that accounts for, $23 billion per annum. On the other hand, you have artisanal fashion, you have the world of handicrafts, textiles, and rural India, which employs about 34.5 million artisans that span the length and breadth of our beautiful country. So I feel, looking forward, the challenges that we have as a fashion industry, as consumers that you and I are, what are we going to do to bridge the gap between grassroots and glamour? How do we bring the skills and the artistry that we have within our own country that spans the part of India that you and I don't inhabit? How do we bring that world to this glamorized, glitzy world of high fashion that is heard about, that you read about, that you participate in? The reason I talk very passionately about handicrafts and textiles is because I had the good fortune of being involved in a project called Project Renaissance, which I spearheaded for Vogue India. It allowed me to travel to a variety of different villages, artisanal villages, handicraft villages, textile villages across India, to go there and see the workings, the love, the effort that goes into the weaving of your fabric. And then Vogue bought the fabrics from a variety of places. I went to Maheshwar in Indore, I went to Varanasi, I went to Kanchipuram in South, I went to Nagaland, and saw all the weaving community. I saw a little bit. The expanse and the repertoire is amazing in this country. So wherever I went and acquired the beautiful fabrics, and we gifted it. We gifted it to the top international designers in the world. So from everyone, to Burberry, to Etro, Gucci, Ferragamo, Fendi, you name it, we gifted it to 21 international designers and said, look at this. This is the kind of art and craft and handicraft and textiles that come from our country. And we would like to see what you can do with this beautiful fabric. Of course, what turned out to be was a spectacular array of products and designs that were made, which we photographed and, of course, put in the magazine. We had exhibitions to showcase. If you could only see a Christian Louboutin shoes in beautiful Kanchipuram silk, or Roberto Cavalli dress in a bandhani from Gujarat, or Gucci dress in the most intrinsic patola, it was a great marrying of two traditions, of two worlds. There was the heritage and there's modernity, there was national, there's international. And it made me think that perhaps in our own country, we're not doing enough to engage the Indian fashion community to be more involved, to collaborate more with the textile and handicraft world that we also own and love. I think these collaborations are the only things that's going to ensure that weavers continue to weave, that embroiderers continue to embroider. It is impossible to think that if we don't collaborate, that it's going to survive on its own. As we all know, if a weaver can't weave in this little town, in his little village, they're going to come to mammoth cities like this that have no opportunities for them. So perhaps looking forward, as far as fashion is concerned, I do believe that this kind of collaboration is what is going to be the biggest agenda for this country and the fashion landscape. On the other hand, you have to understand, I mean, I'm not saying something that is unique. I'm not saying there have been tons of people. NGOs have been working in this field for 30, 40 years. You know, they are the gurus in this domain. But I just feel that as young people, all of you out there, we've got to find ingenious, indigenous means to be able to collaborate. Today, I'm surprised, you know, as I do my research, I want to be more and more involved in handicraft and textiles of India and see how we can get the world to notice, how we get our people to be more engaged. You know, I'm surprised. You know, you've got Silicon Valley entrepreneurs who've now arrived here, and because they've lived overseas for 10, 20 years, and they come here and they say, my gosh, they don't have to tell us this, we know it. The biggest USP in our country, in the fashion, style, you know, creative landscape of this country, the biggest USP is our handicraft and textile industry. And now the Silicon Valley bankers, entrepreneurs, they've come here and they've started this fascinating websites where they are building a world where you can access Indian handicrafts from any corner of India. I'm just giving you examples of how, you know, ingenious you can get about how to involve local communities and rural communities into an urban landscape. We all know about Sabyasachi Mukherjee, who's a premier designer based out of Calcutta. And, you know, as much as he employs embroiderers and he will use beautiful handloom textiles, he realized that that was not enough. The fact is, the weavers have to keep weaving no matter what the trend is for the season or whether the designer likes their fabric or not. So in order to make the weavers weave, he decided that, okay, in the months that they're not selling well, he packaged their fabric and started selling them in his store. So if you go to a Sabyasachi store, you can actually buy a beautiful jamdani or to whatever fabric that he's supporting at that point, packaged beautifully, and all the proceeds go to the weaving family so that they can sustain and they can live off and they can thrive within their artistic world with their skills. So I think every time you've given a choice to buy this and that, I think it's very important to understand that start questioning. You know, it's all lovely to say, oh, what a lovely ikat print. But if it's just a print, say no. There's an ikat weave that we are engineers of in this country. So I think individual choices in fashion can have a huge impact. Now, I'm going to go to my second point. I'm very old school, so I have all my points in my little notebook. This I'm going to end off with. One of the biggest nuisances in my very, very fashionable world and fashionable job is being told constantly that fashion is frivolous, that fashion is not serious business. The fact is, globally, it's a $1.5 trillion US industry that impacts the lives of billions of people all across the world. Even in your very city, when there is a fashion week, they call it a week, but it's about 3-4 days, the editorial impact, the amount of editorial that they generate is worth about 60 to 75 crores for those 3-4 days. They generate 20 to 30 hours of television time for those 3-4 days, more than 2,500 impressions on social media just for those few days. The magazine that I work with, the other fashion magazines, other lifestyle magazines, you know, we put the top Bollywood stars on our covers. These Bollywood stars, these wonderful actresses, on the one hand, they have millions of followers on social media. On the other hand, they have the capacity to reach the corners of India that you and I can only dream of, because that's the impact of Bollywood. So let's just say fashion is married to Bollywood. Bollywood is married to the rest of the country. So don't you think that it is time for you and me to ensure that we engage these big voices towards the cause of women, towards the cause of disenfranchised, the minorities? I feel it is our right to ask them. We have made them popular. They the amount of influence that they harness, we have to hold them responsible to take up a stand. I think the best thing that I've learned in my job, as much as, you know, I'm not your typical fashionista, is that there is this incredible power that fashion does wield. And whichever way you slice it, there is no doubt it is the power of influence. And we have to use fashion as a tool of communication too. We have to use it as a platform and a catalyst for change. It is happening the world over. You know, to take an example, even though there are many, many international brands doing this, Gucci, they have an incredible project of philanthropy called Chime for Change. They raise millions of dollars and they support 210 projects in 81 countries to empower women in the fields of gender bias, health, education. And that is a fashion company doing it. I think we need to hold our fashion companies, when you buy things, when you buy anything, what is the ideology of that brand? What does it stand for? You know, if you start questioning that, then perhaps fashion philanthropy is something that can be a huge catalyst for change. And I'm saying this to you because I, like you, we are all consumers. You know, and it's one thing to call yourself, I'm a fashion conscious person. But you know where you're going to become an incredible citizen is when you say, I am going to have a fashion and a social conscience. That is going to be the big step. Thank you very much.